by the Troubles. They are the survivors.
You talk about survivor's guilt. You do carry that. It's very difficult, and people who haven't been in the circumstances will not understand the way that I would feel about it, but there certainly is that guilt, and I take that with me to my grave.
At that stage, life was just horrible. There was no counselling. You know, you got a pat in the head, we can do no more for you. You know, you have to come to the hospital maybe every other week, you know, but go home, that's it. And that was you.
The Troubles just slapped me in the face. Something that had happened so long ago, nearly 40 years ago, just came up and presented itself, and I really didn't know how to deal with it.
It's hard to believe that it's 27 years ago. Every time I look through this, my heart goes, and I feel very emotional about it and very upset. I always believe that it's better to tell your story than not tell your story. So even though it does bring all the emotions up, I believe that that's the right thing to do, and I think there's healing in that, in telling your story. I was probably, would you believe, very shy until I actually hit 16 or 17. I suppose when I hit 17, 18 and went on to university, much more outgoing, bubbly personality, and I'd like to think a good friend to the girls that I am friends with. My father was one of the first people killed in the Troubles in Northern Ireland in August 1969. He was shot by the base specials. It was unfortunate. He was in the wrong time, wrong place, and he was an innocent bystander. Mum was very, very adamant that we were never to be brought up feeling hatred for anybody. There was no way that was ever on her agenda for us. She would never have wanted us to get involved in anything that would have been to the detriment of us.
I was born in 1971, and I grew up in the Lisburn Road part of Belfast. That was maybe not as affected by the Troubles as other areas. At the age of 5, my adopted parents told me that I was adopted, and it was a very young age and a very big thing to take in, but I believe it was the right thing that they did. I grew up with that awareness over the next years, with a sense of wonderment of who my real mum was, and the questions that sort of come from that. When I was in my 20s, I began to ask questions. I went to the social services, and I was given some pretty disturbing information. They gave me a letter, and it basically just said my mother had been murdered. I subsequently showed this to different people, and they were stunned at how coldly this was conveyed to me, and basically that was it.
I didn't wear a seatbelt. If I had a seatbelt on, I'd have been dead. I was a self-employed taxi driver. Life was going well. My wife was working, I was working. I had 2 lovely children. One was 14, coming 15, and the other one was 10. So life was good.
Yet another attack on a taxi driver, this time by the IRA.
A girl was going to work in Botanic. There was traffic backing up at this time, and I says to her, you know, I'll try and get round some other way.
Terrorists had attached a booby-trap device underneath his Ford Sierra.
So I decided, right, I'll go up Durham Street, right across Grosvenor Road, down over Sandy Row, over the Boyne Bridge, and down Hope Street.
The taxi had just crossed the Boyne Bridge and turned off Sandy Row into Hope Street when the bomb detonated.
I remember all of a sudden seeing this almighty, like a flash coming. The next thing was, I remember a merciful blast. The bomb had went off. My left leg, it flew off in 2 bits, and I remember it flying out first, and I went out behind it. It was like getting shot out of an old cannon. Boom. And I went out, and I was across the other side of the street and landed, and I was lying beside a grating. I'll never forget it, because there was water running. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm dead. That's it, you know, this is it. I always say I was very, very lucky, because what's your chances of a doctor being behind you and the car behind going to work? You know what I mean? So he was out of the car straight on to me. And coming around Hope Street from the city centre was a foot patrol, Army Foot Patrol, which was on the streets them times. They had the field dressings and morphine bang and all of that. But I have to say, I always put it down on my luck.
I was a residential social worker in St Joseph's School, training school in Middletown, and I was working. It was during my work hours that I actually was involved in the bomb. Sister Catherine Dunn happened to be on duty that day, and I needed somebody after I dropped the car off to come on in and leave me on into Armagh. I'd left the car at the garage, and Sister Catherine had pulled in on ahead to wait for me. She was in the driver's seat waiting. I went in and spoke to the mechanic and told him what needed to be done with the car, and I come out and got in beside Sister Catherine. From that on, I don't remember anything else about the journey, the rest of the journey in the road to where actually the bomb happened. Sister Catherine was the driver of the car, and she was pronounced dead on arrival at the hospital. The 3 policemen, I think, were pronounced dead at the actual scene of the bomb.
Sister Catherine Dunn, originally from Dublin, had been driving a social worker, Catherine McCann, back to Armagh when they too got caught in the blast.
My husband, when he was brought to the hospital, when he went, he was told that I was dead, because there was 2 women had been admitted, and we were both Catherines, and there had been a mix-up, but it was Sister Catherine who had died, and it wasn't me. I was very lucky. I had a head injury, where my head had hit against the windscreen of the car because of the impact of the 1,000-pound bomb. I had injuries right down where the seatbelt secured me in the car, and the seatbelt actually cut right into my flesh. I had shrapnel and I torn ligaments and a dislocated shoulder. The bomb was placed by the IRA, and I was told that we were just collateral damage.
It was the 7th of February 2010, and there was a newspaper article in the Sunday Life. The paper was my sister, Charlene, basically looking for lost siblings. I found out all the details, how my mother was murdered, what my dear sister went through, from the front page of a newspaper and 4 subsequent pages in the Sunday Life. So I felt I was very traumatized. My mother was originally from Sion Mills. Her name was Anne Ogilvy, and she subsequently moved to Belfast. I think my sister Charlene would have been with her at the time. Just different personalities and people and disagreements that led to a very violent attack on my mother in a place called Hunter Street in Belfast, where my mother was subsequently brutally murdered by people that she knew. And really that was the information that I found out. My poor sister was actually outside when this occurred, and this was on the front page of the newspaper that so shocked me. She was actually found on the motorway, I think maybe wrapped in a tarpaulin, and basically left on the motorway near Stockman's Lane.
My chances of survival, I was told at the time, was 1,000,000 to 1. I was so close to the city hospital, and it took 11 minutes from the bomb going off till I hit the theatre, which is unbelievable. Now, if I had been anywhere else further away, I'd have bled to death.
Just chaos. People were all arriving at the hospital. I think it was around about 6 o'clock or something in the morning. The consultant came out to speak to me, and they said, you know, we thought we were going to have to lose his leg, and I said to him, no, please try and save his leg, because it's going to be bad enough waking up with one gone without the two. I says, even if he keeps it for a short time, to let him come to terms with what had happened to him. He woke up, it was about a week. His eyes just flicked open and he looked at me and he kept going, 1 or 2. That's all he done, 1, 2. And I said to the nurse, I says, he wants to know if he has lost 1 leg or 2 legs.
Well, I have to say, obviously I lost that leg and it was blew up 2 places, and it is what it is, as it is, you see it now. But it was, as you see, it was heavy skin graft in and around the thigh, and the lower part of the leg, the ball of the leg, was all blew away. Now, it took 360 staple stitches and all that there to keep that on, but they take the skin off another part of the body, and to use it to put back on again. Life was just horrible, to be honest. I lost my business, right? Because I'm self-employed, so I no longer had that. I lost my home because of what happened to me. I wasn't able to pay a mortgage or anything, right? And I felt I wasn't no longer a man. I wasn't able to go out and provide for my family. And I felt at one stage, you know, this is not right, the way that I am sort of living and not able to provide for my kids. My kids couldn't go to things because I hadn't got the money. I couldn't provide. We hadn't got it. We had basics to live on and welfare, and that's the way you were treated. And I unfortunately tried to commit suicide.
I was so angry with him. So angry. The doctor spoke to me about it, and he says, you know, this is a normal thing that can happen after things like this. And I says, I know, but look at the fighting the doctor's done to save his life, and he was going to take the easy way out. I just said to him, you're as selfish. I've been here for you every single day from you've been blew up. I've been at the hospital every day. I says, doctors have worked tirelessly, and what other people has done for you, I says, and you just take a bottle of tablets. And I says, did you stop to think what was going to happen to me and the kids? And he says, I was going to do it for you and the kids. I didn't want to be a burden. And I says, well, I think that's up to me to decide whether you're going to be a burden. I'm quite capable of looking after you.
That was like a light switch, a bulb going off in my head. That changed my life. That was the point where I says, no, it's my fault. I have to get on with this and do this myself. And that was the turning point for me.
I was off work for 8 months. It was very tough to go back to work, and it was tough for us as a family because of the way I potentially had changed because of coming through the bomb experience. I became quite angry. I would have had lots of highs and lows. I think the most horrific experience was going through the court system for the compensation. Our solicitor was there and there was a barrister, and I had made every effort to be presentable to go down. I was told when I came in, oh, you shouldn't have put makeup on you. Oh, you shouldn't have worn tights to show your scar on your leg. And I'd asked, was I going to be penalised because I had come in, tried to make every effort and present myself that I'd moved on. Was I going to be penalised? Did they want me to come in to present myself as not able to cope with life, not able to get on with life? I had spent 8 months prior to come back to work in that situation, and it was time to move on for me. That was really, really difficult because it was people who said, oh, it didn't do Kathy a button of harm, she came out of that bomb okay. Because people assumed that was large compensation being paid out to victims of the Troubles, which certainly wasn't the case. I would say I was angry about the men who actually created the bomb that killed 4 people. I was angry because I knew them. They knew me, and it was very hard. That was the situation. Armagh's a small town. 2 men that were arrested and served 10 years were people that I knew, were families that I knew. They came out onto the terms of Good Friday Agreement. One died about 2 years after he got out of prison, and he got an IRA funeral here in Armagh, and the other gentleman still lives in Armagh, and I would run into him on occasions. It's very hard. He has said that I've made his life a misery. He has told me that. Oh God, I'm going to cry, sorry. I think from my point of view is the fact that he doesn't think that he's done anything wrong. And that's what's hard to stomach, is that there's no remorse or no regret, nor has he ever said to me, I'm sorry you were ever caught up in that. I'm sorry that I ever killed 3 policemen. I'm sorry I ever killed a nun. Sister Catherine was buried in Middletown Convent. She was a sister based in the convent in Middletown. She worked with the girls as well. I pray to her every night. I do think that she gave up her life to save me. And I do think she said to God to take her and to leave me, because I had a young baby and a husband at home.
For 40 years I had never met or hugged anyone my own flesh. My sister had taken, and it must have been a huge emotional effort to go to a newspaper to actually seek out, you know, the family, the people who basically would have been split up. I met Charlene, I think it was maybe 2 months after the article, which again, I don't seem to do things very quickly. We met in Orangefield Presbyterian Church. Whenever we went in, this lady came up to me and said, hello Ken, and it was Charlene. And she said to me, and this meant a lot to me, she said she knew it was me when I walked in. I felt that just a huge part of the unknown was answered. I would still be in contact. I would go down and see my aunt and uncle. You know, you don't have to live out of someone's pockets, but just even the knowledge that they're there and there's family that you can touch base with is, for me, it means the world. After the article appeared in the paper, I was in a level of shock, and I think I was emotionally all over the place. And it was at that point in time I was connecting with the Historic Inquiries team, who were immensely helpful. They subsequently referred me to the Way of Trauma Centre, where I found a tremendous level of support and help, empathy and understanding as well. I think the past isn't easily forgotten, and it can come back into the present and manifest itself in many ways, particularly if victims and survivors feel they're forgotten. I felt that there was a sense of closure, that there was a court case and justice, but for those who've never had that, I think it's wrong to tell them just to forget.
I knew that I had to get up, go and do things. I went out, and I remember going to a meeting with people who in the Way of Injured group. When I start to listen to the people, they were going through the same as me, and they were the people that could say, I know how you feel, because I'm the same. They had lost limbs, they had been shot, their loved ones had been killed. And that was the greatest thing I ever done, because then people who was in the same position as myself were listening. I could open up where I wouldn't talk to other people about certain things, only my wife, and that changed my life, because then I seen, you know, here's a way I can work to help people myself. And now I would be a campaigner for all victims and survivors, no matter where they come from or what side of the fence they're from or anything. I actually am on a campaign at the present time with a group of people as to get a pension for severely injured people in Northern Ireland. Every other country in the world, if you're a victim of terrorism, will pay a pension to the victims, right? Britain does not. Our Assembly does not. And it's totally wrong. Totally wrong. See people who say, you know, draw a line in the sand and move on. You know, they need to realise that these things happen to people. Don't get me wrong, I can understand that we need to move on for the greater good of the likes of my grandchildren and a future for them. But we cannot forget what happened to the people of the past, especially people living with severe injury.
It will never be all over. And for anybody to say that you should draw a line under it, I think you're doing a real injustice to anybody who has been a survivor of the Troubles. For me, it will never be over. To me, I will still spend my life like a roller coaster, having highs and lows throughout my whole life. And my family are there, and they have to bear witness to that. For other people, because of the nature of their physical injuries, they have constraints on their life and their quality of life. So you can never draw a line under it and say that it's over.
Both my wife and my son help give meaning to go on and to not focus on the past and to look to the future. It makes me very happy when I see Daniel with his mum, thinking that I grew up with a lovely adopted mum. She was wonderful, but there was always that sadness that I just never knew my real mum. But to see Daniel with Lisa, just the relationship between a mother and a son is just so special, and I'm just so glad that he has that.